everybody. Thanks for joining us again today. We've got another exciting show lined up for you. Just can't wait to get to it. As usual, here with me again is Sandy McKay. How are you this morning, Sandy?
Hey, Rob. Doing awesome and excited for another show. Got me a new backdrop here and new kind of setup, so I'm pumped.
For those of you who can't see it, listening on audio, Sandy's got the backdrop there is in true Breakthrough REI podcast fashion. We've got a nice red themed and a new logo there in the corner.
Nice Canadian backdrop for us all.
Loving it. Everyone listening should go over to breakthroughreipodcast.ca and you can listen to all the past episodes that we've done. Hook up with all of our guests, so their contact info is in there. If you find one that you've really enjoyed, want to reach out to one of the guests, go over and all their contact info, any references they've talked about, usually all that stuff is in the show notes. So go over to breakthroughreipodcast.ca and you can get our free gift.
The ultimate strategy for building wealth through real estate's still relevant today, by the way, if you've been listening to our shows for years and wondering about that. I mean, it is still very relevant. I think the general strategy is there for you to, give yourself a good foundation. And then, there's a whole bunch of different ways you can take that. But go grab that gift and don't miss out on the show. Get on our email list for updates and everything like that. And just keep in touch with us and learn what we're up to. Definitely go do that. Yeah,
we're sharing some really cool property of the week when people sign up for that. We're also
it's super cool now because it's maybe has some southern flair to it.
It does, actually. Yeah. We're doing some Costa Rica properties of the week, video walkthroughs down here, opportunities for Airbnbs. And if anyone listens ready for retirement, it's not a bad place to be for that as well. So get on the mailing list. Don't miss that stuff. Go over to iTunes as well and leave us a rating and review. It helps, everyone knows this. It helps just spread the word about the podcast, right? Let more people who are looking for this kind of content have it show up, in their peripherals, so they can join in and get all this information as well.
I think primarily it helps us get to that top of the list when we're in Canada and you're a Canadian listener and you want to hear Canadian content. We want to make sure we're up at the top because that is all we do is throw out Canadian-based content for you and. Maybe a little bit of Costa Rican flair here and there, but all geared towards Canadians and how you can invest and build wealth in this business.
Well, that's exactly it. And that's a good point that you're making there, Sandy, is that, in a couple of weeks, I've got a guy lined up that does themed Airbnbs in Florida area and different places. But we wanted to make sure that it was something that Canadians could be involved in, right? Like a direct... like a way that, a channel for them to be involved, right? A direct action that can be taken by Canadians, not just some random idea that, you could use maybe if you were in a different location. So that's been very important for us. And I think that the same applies for the Costa Rica stuff, right? It's more, now I'm down here, I've got the knowledge, I'm able to explain to people, the processes and what they need to do in order to invest down here. So it's more the angle that is there to help Canadians take action.
Well, financing and money and getting it, transferring it out of countries like that is different than, for us as Canadians versus an American or, a citizen of somewhere else. It all looks different, right? So getting that experience and that knowledge is huge. So let us keep sharing that with more people and get us out of the whole mess of everyone else online. And the more we share and grow this together, we can build some more great content and make sure it's available for everyone.
Yep. We love those 5-star ratings. So keep them coming, guys. What else we got going on, Sandy? What's up? What's new with you?
What's new? Transitioning a bit of our businesses in some ways, which we'll have some more to share in the next week or 2 weeks, maybe as we grow. So probably over the next couple episodes, if you're listening to this one, you'll probably start to hear a bit more about that. But just some new structures, I suppose, into what we're doing. We're still doing the same general model, BRRRR strategies on investment properties across Southern Ontario. Going into some bigger projects probably and just revamping our team and what it looks like in some ways. So that's the big task for me, which is a heck of a lot, heck of a lot more challenging now, and there's a lot more people involved than there was early on. So it takes a while to just do that stuff. So been working on that since for a while, a few months, and I'm excited about it. And I think we'll have some new projects, new exciting things to share, and lessons learned for sure along the way.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm interested to hear what it is because I've seen your rebranding. So I'm interested to, yeah.
It's coming.
Cool. Okay, well, I mean, without further ado, let's get to our guest.
Awesome. We've got with us George El-Masri here today, and super excited to have him share some of his experiences. And George, quick backstory on him: University of Toronto graduate, 2012, picked up a full-time office job with a tech company, and quickly realized how miserable he was. We've definitely heard that one before. And after a long period of reflection, he realized he'd be much happier in real estate. And he thought, what can I do every day for the next 10 years and wake up feeling happy? Answer was clear, of course, real estate. And I got his realtor's license as well, knowing that one day he'd become a real estate investor as well. And he completed his first BRRRR strategy project in 2017, got hooked on that, like a lot of us have on that strategy. And since then, he's been obsessed with the idea of building wealth and helping others do the same. He is the host of his own podcast, Well Off Podcast, and he's loves playing chess, basketball, and running for a few of his extra hobbies there on top of real estate. So welcome to the show, George.
Thank you for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's always good to hear those extra hobbies too, because the whole reason why we invest in real estate is so we have the means to go out and do those other things, right?
Yeah.
So welcome to the show. Appreciate you taking the time and coming to share your knowledge with us today.
Thanks,
so
guys.
I mean, we're going to start out the way we always do. You've had some success with real estate. Let's go back and learn about how you got interested in real estate and how it all started for you.
Yeah, I know Sandy touched on it a little bit, but I'm just going to share a little bit of the whole office job story. So I was working part-time while I was studying at a tech company, and I was doing quality assurance work. So I was like basically copying and pasting from PDF all day and that sort of thing. It was so boring and I hated it. And then I took on the job full-time after I graduated, thinking, okay, they offered me the job. It's easy, whatever, I just do it. And after a couple months of doing that, I remember I got a call at 4:55 p.m. and I think it was on a Friday. So there was every desk had a little phone on it. So I knew if you're getting a call at 4:55, it's not good news. Something bad's about to happen because I'd seen it happen before. And I got called into the office with the manager, and there was a lawyer there, and I think one other person. And basically they were telling me, okay, we're letting you go. So I was a little bit like, I wasn't too happy with that, but at the same time, I felt liberated because it allowed me to do what I wanted to do. And like Sandy said, I just thought about what I wanted, and I always knew I wanted to invest in real estate. Like since I was 16 years old, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And so I got my license, started selling at that point, 2013, I think I started selling real estate. And around 2016, I took a real interest in finding out about investing, and I reached out to a bunch of investors, just like Googled and tried to connect with investors. And I think all of them turned me down except Sandy McKay. I don't know how I got in touch with Sandy, but like some way Sandy said, yeah, I'll meet with you. I'll have coffee with you. No problem. Just come to Hamilton. And we sat down, we chatted for about 45 minutes, and Sandy was kind enough to like give me that time. And he talked to me about the BRRRR strategy in that moment, and it just got my wheels turning. And I thought, this is perfect. This is exactly what I want to do. And that was kind of the start of my investment journey.
Awesome. So let's hear about, so was Sandy's team help you, or no, I guess you're a realtor. So yeah. One way or the other, you guys worked something out, but let's talk about your first property that you bought.
Yeah. So it was in downtown Hamilton. It was a 2.5-story single family home. Actually, it was used as a duplex at the time. So I went in there. It was listed, I think, originally for $259, and they reduced the price to $249 at the time. And I ended up submitting an offer for $215. And nobody wanted this house because it had a lot of issues. The tenants were like, there were some bad tenants in the property. And I remember when I did a home inspection on it, and the home inspector at the time said this was the worst house he's ever seen, which kind of scared me being a first time investor. But yeah, I bought that place. It had fleas, cockroaches. It needed like a full gut. Had all sorts of problems that I had never run into in my life. I didn't know how to deal with them, but you just kind of figure it out as you go. And I did a lot of the rentals myself with some help from my dad and like some friends and stuff like that. And we did new flooring, new kitchen, spruced up the bathroom, did everything, and then rented it out and was able to refinance it a few months later.
I heard you say it was 250,000. This is in Hamilton, Southern Ontario, and
Yeah.
nobody wanted it.
Yeah,
What year?
I know,
What year was this?
2017.
Wow, only 2017 too. That's crazy that nobody wanted it. You could any house for that price in Southern Ontario right now. Obviously now, but you could just almost say Ontario at this point would be a good deal at 250 or less. That's crazy that it's only 5 years ago. Barely, not even probably. That's crazy. That's really crazy to think about that. That house today is probably worth what would that be? I know the house. That's why I'm trying to think as well.
It's probably around like 650, maybe 7, somewhere in that range. Yeah,
maybe 7. Yeah. Wild.
So how did you gear up to, because there's a huge intimidation factor in what you're talking about. That's your very first place, and you've got a good team around you. But how do you prepare yourself for that level of renovations when you've got no experience in that?
I honestly didn't. I didn't know what I was doing. I just like watched some YouTube videos. I think Sandy did the same thing with his first place, because I think you had done some of the rentals yourself. But yeah, just go on YouTube, try to get some information and just do it and figure it out. And whatever you don't know how to do, you hire somebody to help you, like obviously a plumber or whatever. That was it. I was terrified. Like I was so stressed in that moment, but I just figured it out.
How do you think how did you get over that hurdle? It's a hard, to take action on that. There has to be something. You were fearful in a way, but you somehow overcame that. Was there thinking back now, was there anything that, I don't know, in your environment or in your world or something that helped you really go past that hurdle and actually take action? Because like you said, you didn't have everything figured out. You didn't really know what you're doing. You were kind of somewhat prepared, but definitely not completely prepared. So what do you think that it was that helped you take action?
I think I had this like intuitive feeling that I had to buy something now because of the price point in Hamilton. Like you said, like that's unheard of today. So I thought, okay, if the opportunity's there and I'm in a position to buy this home and it's only $215,000, what's the worst that can happen? I can probably sell that home, like spruce it up a bit and sell it, worst case, if I had to. So I had that backup plan, and I knew Hamilton was going to increase in value. Like it was just, there were too many signs that showed that it's like super close to Toronto. There's a lot of people going out in that direction because they're getting priced out of the GTA, and it just made sense. So whatever fears I had, I just tried to logically defeat them.
Do you think being a realtor might have helped you with that a bit? Just being, having that, being involved in other transactions, not necessarily your own, but just not even investments necessarily, just everyday transactions. I'm asking because that kind of helped me a bit. I think get over some fear at the beginning too. Just being involved in deals kind of numbs you a little bit to the process at times, right?
Yeah, I'm sure that helped a little bit. But honestly, I didn't know the market at all when I bought that house. I only had access to the Toronto Real Estate Board. And as you guys know, you don't get everything when you're on TREB. Like you need to have access to the Hamilton board to see the majority of comparables and sales in the area. And I didn't have that much information. I just thought this just makes sense. And yes, having that real estate, like that realtor background helps in that situation. But I didn't have a lot of information. I didn't have it all figured out. I just went for it and just did it.
Good for you. hard for a lot of people to do. So
yeah, I agree. It was kind of crazy, but like I said, it was stressful, right? Like not a lot of people want to put themselves in that situation where you go through that much stress or you put that much pressure on yourself and you have to just complete the project.
That property, you still have that property?
I do, yeah.
And is that basically been your model since then? Is the BRRRR projects and sticking to that, or have you gone out on a limb on anything else?
I haven't done anything else. I haven't done like any Airbnbs or student rentals or rent to owns. I did kind of look into that at one point, but I've just done pretty much BRRRRs the entire way. But now at this point, we're BRRRRing 3 to 6 unit buildings instead of single family homes or duplexes. So we've just kind of changed the strategy a little bit.
Scaled it up.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you think, you kind of touched on it, but real estate, when you got into it, was it the investor side or was it the realtor side that really drew you to it initially, or was it a combination? Because you started out really as a realtor, right, before doing the investment side, which is not uncommon, but that there's definitely a lot of investors, maybe even some listening to this call, that have done the investor side and transitioned to realtor because they thought it would help them with their investor business. You didn't really get into it just to help with your investment business necessarily, right?
No, I got into it and I was doing like the classic cold calling and door knocking and just trying to sell homes. But like I said, I always had that intention of investing. So I was just trying to understand how real estate works in general and gather some information so that I can invest at some point.
Cool. And was Hamilton the target? Like, how did you decide on Hamilton? What was interesting about Hamilton? And you mentioned a few things, but was there other markets they were looking into at the same time? Because you're not from, live in Hamilton, so I know it wasn't like you're just going down the street and thinking it was like the right area. You had to look outbound a little bit, right?
Yeah. Funny actually. So the first property that I submitted an offer on was in Orangeville. And it was like a semi-detached single family home. And I couldn't qualify for financing for that home because I had been pretty fresh in real estate. I didn't have that track record. So I didn't qualify. And then I was a little disappointed. And a few months later, I was looking around and I saw the price point in Hamilton. And that's what drew me, really, was the price point and the proximity to Toronto. And that was the reason that I started focusing there.
Orangeville would have been more expensive, probably.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It was probably at the time for like a similar home, it was probably almost double the price, really, because I think the home I was looking at was like $450 or something.
Mm-hmm. Well, those are fun times. 2017, but that was a hot market too, right? It was 20, or was it because 2017 was one of those years that was crazy hot for the first part, and then it kind of fell off. Was it in that fury of everyone trying to buy everything in the early part of that year, or was it later on?
It was later on. So, well, I think I submitted the offer in like June or something at that time.
Okay.
So I think I don't remember, but I think 2017 was when they announced the government had just put in the first the minimum down payment standard that had changed, I think, and that was impacting the market a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There was a little tiny lull there, right, where there's some opportunities. Like that's probably the last time I remember any sort of like slowdown, I guess.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it's been on a pretty fast uptick since. What do you contribute to some of the success early on, like or throughout your career now? Like how have you gone from that raw kind of fresh person not really knowing what they're doing to going and doing bigger deals now and doing more investments and just continuing that growth? How have you done that?
Well, there's been a lot of things. One of which was being around other people, including your like Adrian Pinozzo. I spent some time with him last year. I was finding deals for him and kind of learning and figuring out what he was doing, because I know you guys do a lot of the 3 to 6 unit projects, and I know you're growing now. But just seeing what you look for and how you do it and the creativity behind that really helped. Being a part of different investment groups like Durham REI, and I actually hired Quentin D'Souza to coach me around 2 years ago now, and that was probably the biggest thing for me, having him as a coach. Just the things that we implemented, just simple things like incorporating, setting yourself up financially to purchase more properties, and then finding deals. All these things he helped me with, and we were able to more than double our units in that year, thanks to his help.
Nice.
Yeah,
Of course, Quentin. We know, friend of the show, been on here multiple times. So great mentor.
He doesn't coach anymore. Doesn't do any more one-on-one coaching, in case somebody's wondering. But yeah, he was awesome.
When I think back, that was probably a pivotal thing for me too, is taking Quentin's coaching. I'm pretty sure that I might have had 1 or maybe 2 properties when I took his coaching, but it really does hold you accountable, right? Because that's what you need. is somebody to say, look, you're not going to misstep. We're all here to help. You just need to go and take action.
Yeah.
Right. And if there's accountability there, really does help propel you forward.
Sure. Yeah. Another part of that is whatever I was afraid of, like it was the biggest thing in the world for me. I was terrified of this or that happening. For him, he'd been through it a million times, and he would just calm me down and say like, hey, this is all you have to do in this situation. And it just help you get past that fear, get past those hurdles.
Yeah, that's pretty big in real estate investing, because some of it is pretty daunting. Like if you didn't grow up in a real estate family where people are buying buildings and bigger properties all the time, it's like you don't just go down the street and buy a fourplex because it's looks cool and you have $500 million to just throw around. Like it's not very typical for most upbringings, right? So getting that comfort level with that definitely takes I think a lot about your environment or who you're talking to, and someone in your corner to help with that is certainly a big factor for me too. Along the way, in so many ways, having a coach or mentor or someone that can guide you and calm you down is a major piece there. Exactly what you said. So I love that.
Now you've made it sound super simple so far, right? It's just like butter. It just flows, right?
Yeah.
But no, we need to talk about the challenges. Obviously, there's been a lot of challenges that you faced starting out as well. And let's talk about those and how you've progressed and overcame them.
Yeah, I think investing in general is simple. The strategy is simple, but there are a lot of things that come up that can make it difficult. For example, there's things that can make your life very stressful if you don't know how to deal with those obstacles. So I can name a few obstacles that I've come up with, and I'm sure you guys have dealt with these types of situations. But I bought a fiveplex a couple years ago, and the owner lied about having a bed bug problem. So I took over all the tenants. The building was fully occupied at the time, and the day before closing, I'm walking through the building, and the tenant tells me that they have a bed bug infestation in the building. And again, this was like my first fiveplex purchase. So
that can't be in Hamilton. There's no bed bugs in Hamilton.
No, this was actually in Welland.
Oh, that makes more sense.
Yeah. Oh man, there's tons of bed bugs in Hamilton. That's bad. So
I know.
Yeah, so like that, obviously that I was really worried about that because I don't know what to do, and now I understand that sort of situation a lot more. And we had a similar situation happen in Hamilton recently where the same thing, the owner lied about bed bugs, and like 2 days after I close, I go over there and the tenant's telling me they have bed bugs. So again, now I have to deal with that problem. And if the tenants aren't living like a certain way, if they're not clean and whatever, it's very hard to eliminate the bed bug problem while they're living there. So you need to vacate the units in order to get proper treatment. And so those are things that are stressful because you don't really know how long it's going to take with the way the eviction process is and whatnot. And, those are like, that's an example of struggles that I've had to overcome with investing.
What did that look like for the bed bug side? Like, how I'm thinking about this in terms of someone that could actually use some help around that. If they were walking into property and seeing bed bugs as an issue, or like when we're ever walking through with a client, let's say, and we're talking about opportunity, and one of the things we talk about is like ask the tenants what their experience has been like in the property, and there's two sides. You kind of got to take it with a grain of salt because you understand that the tenants, depending on the situation, might be just talking bad about everything in their life. It might not just be the property. So they might make up stuff, or they might be telling the truth, but you kind of have to feel that out a bit and engage it compared to the type of tenant and whatever has happened in the property. But you can't just bank on them saying, yeah, there's bed bugs everywhere, and then assume that there's bed bugs. But you also can't bank on them saying that there aren't, and it's super clean, and like you've had that experience going in there afterwards, right? So any advice on how to navigate that, and also then too, like how did you actually get rid of them? Because I know it is a challenge to get rid of bed bugs. Did you actually get rid of them, or is that?
I'm actually working on it now. So I hired a paralegal to help me negotiate with the tenants because they weren't willing. Like I didn't know how to really get them out. So I worked with a paralegal. We worked out cash for keys, and we're in the middle of doing that right now. But to answer your first question, what do I do now to try to avoid that problem? Well, like you said, when I walk through, I ask a lot of questions to the tenants, and it's funny how much information they'll share. Like they'll tell you so much. They'll tell you about the neighbors upstairs that they have a problem with. They'll tell you about the leaks in the house and whatever else. So I also try to notice if there's any signs of bugs in the house. Like sometimes they'll have those little cans to kill bugs or whatever. So look for that kind of stuff. And then I also now include a clause in my agreement of purchase and sale in Schedule A to that the seller warrants that they don't have an active bed bug problem or that they haven't had one in the last 2 years. You know, at least 2 years. So I try to protect myself in that way and get as much information as possible.
All said and done, though, would you buy a property with bed bugs in it again? Like if it was the right deal, or would you? Is that a real pain in the butt and not worth it?
I think if the property's vacant, then yes. But I don't necessarily want to assume the tenants, unless it's like a crazy discount. But I think I'd rather avoid it if I'm assuming the tenants.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree?
For the right discount, I mean,
yeah.
Buy anything,
Yeah, I was
really,
waiting
right?
for that answer too. You know,
Yeah.
it's all for the right price, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because you can always negotiate cash for keys. And in terms of treatment, you asked about that too. Vacant, I think it has to be vacant unless you have like really clean tenants that are going to follow everything, because they have a preparation sheet that they have to follow. And a lot of tenants don't care. They're not going to do anything on that sheet, or they'll do some of it. So yeah, getting the place vacant, doing heat treatment has been good, and then following it up with chemical treatment. Those are probably the most effective ways, unless you guys know of other ways to treat it.
It's really hard to treat it like like permanently forever, right?
Yeah.
That's the challenge. Like you might get it fixed for a short period, and ultimately it's the tenants and who you have in there, right? So it's removing. There's one tenant I find that's really the problem, and
yeah.
Can you remove them? Can you not? All that sort of thing, and trying to figure that out. And generally the bigger buildings you go into, the more that can be a challenge, because they spread so fast, and it's like, you know, bigger buildings, more tenants, more likelihood of someone being not treating their place well and having that issue. It's a tough one. Bed bugs. It's a tough, really annoying problem. They're like mosquitoes, like, almost like when you're at at the lake or something, and there's like they don't go away.
I know, it's so weird. It's like such a small thing, but so difficult to address.
Yeah.
So how do you balance your time as your personal life, your investment side, and your realtor side? How do you balance all that?
Yeah. So my wife is actually also a realtor. Mm-hmm. So she's been taking over a lot of the real estate sales, like, working with homeowners and that sort of thing. And I've been focused more on the investment side. So that's been great for me for being able to focus on that. And then the personal side, well, that's also a challenge, because we just had our first child. So he's 3 months old now. That's been a different sort of challenge.
Oh, sorry. Congratulations.
Sorry, guys, the camera just went off. There we go. So we just had our first, and we've been trying to figure out how to do everything and balance it all out. But I think it's just a matter of time blocking, setting time aside, making sure you're taking care of yourself and you're in a good place. And then that way it just carries over throughout the rest of the day, and you're able to get things done.
3 month old. Wow. Boy or girl?
We have a boy.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
Are you enjoying that so far?
It's awesome being a parent. It's it's the coolest thing, especially at this age, because now we're getting to interact with him, and he's not crying as much. He takes his naps and he sleeps through the night. So it's definitely a good time, and it allows us to also work, we don't have to be with him 24/7, because I think that's going to happen as he gets a little older. He's going to need company all the time. So it's a good time.
You don't look like you've lost much sleep.
It depends. Some days my wife took a picture of me holding him a few days ago, and she sent it to my mom, and my mom was very worried because I had bags under my eyes and everything. But yeah, I guess some days are better than others.
I feel like it would be similar to that first property you bought, maybe, and going in not knowing it all and just figuring it out as you go.
Oh yeah, definitely same sort of thing.
Yeah. and a new why or reason to keep going with stuff. I imagine too, and some motivation in that.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely, there's a component of that, and like the idea of like maybe buying a property for him so that he can have it when he's older. That sort of thing comes up.
How do you balance it with your wife and Amanda, and you work together like a lot, I guess, in a way, like how do you work that? Do you work together on a lot of things, or do you kind of separate your business because you're both in the same field?
Yeah.
Do you separate things a lot, or do you work together? How does that all work? Because I know husband wife. I mean, I'm similar. Work with my wife, not necessarily directly every day, but we overlap on a lot of things, and it's that brings some challenges too into the whole like relationship, personal side. So
yeah,
what do you do with that? How do you manage that? Any tips on that?
Okay, so my wife was working with her mom, so they were a realtor team prior to us meeting, and they'd been working together for years and years. So when I came on board, I just thought I don't really want to mess with what they have going on, so I'm going to let them continue to operate. And I'm like at this point, I'm kind of referring a lot of my clients to them, and they're working with them. So I'm trying to keep that separation because they have a good thing going, and I don't want to necessarily mess with it. And like you said, it could add some complications to the relationship. So I try to leave some space for them and just focus on investing.
So they let you go and just play around with all the money and stuff and make all these big investment decisions.
Pretty much, yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So that's my advice. If you're a husband and wife realtor team, and you're an investor, let your wife do all the real estate sales and just focus on investing.
Nice.
Tell us about your podcast. You've got this podcast. It's doing quite well, I believe. Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, the Well Off podcast. So I started that in 2018, I believe. And I've had a lot of good people on there like Sandy, Quentin, a bunch of people. And it's been awesome to be able to connect with people. I'm sure, like you guys know, it opens the door to pick the brains of a lot of really good investors and good people, and just have a chance to connect. So that's been great. And of course, just like you guys, I want to motivate people to take action, to invest, to better their lives. And I think we can use more of that content.
I think that's just like business in general right now in 2022, especially. Like if you're not giving value to the marketplace in some way, it's really tough to grow a business of any significance. At least I think, like when we started this, it wasn't necessarily, it wasn't needed per se. This is 2014, but times have changed 8 years later. I think you got to be pouring into the community, into the marketplace to get that reciprocity, people wanting to do business with you because you've shared so much. And real estate investment, for sure, there's still lots of room. I mean, I'm kind of fueling our competition here, but there's a lot of room for more content out there. Like people should be, if you want to learn how to and build relationships and that, there's nothing better than interviewing people and sharing it with the world, whether that's a podcast or a video series or writing a book or whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
It's a great strategy for any business. It's a great like foundational piece to build upon.
Well, let me ask you guys something, because I know you guys have a successful podcast. What have you been able to do to differentiate yourselves from other podcasts that are sharing similar content?
That's a funny question. I think that we differentiate ourselves.
We started first.
You know what's funny? Well, we did start first, right? And I don't know if other people have. I mean, we just stole our idea from Bigger Pockets. That's basically what we did. So, I mean, I don't know that we necessarily need to differentiate ourselves from everyone else. But the one thing that I think that we really did stay true to is making it actionable steps for Canadians, right? We didn't want to have a bunch of content that wasn't relevant to the majority of people that were listening. So I think that was the biggest thing that we've stayed true to this whole time, and that's helped us.
I think so too. I think we've had definitely, I don't know how many opportunities, tons of opportunities of guests and coming on, and we get every day almost. It seems like we get hit with emails and stuff with guests that are in somewhere else in the world that don't have anything related to Canada, and we just pass next because it's you're getting out of your lane now, and now everyone's going to get confused. It's like, we really focus on being the go-to place for Canadian real estate content in podcast form, and if we deviated from that, we would have had probably some challenges, and our listeners wouldn't have stayed around so long.
Yeah. So it
So-
sounds
Yeah.
like focus is important. Just focused content and making sure you're sticking to one thing and not going all over the place.
I mean, it's really interesting because we've tried to cover all different aspects. Like we've had someone in to talk about coaching and mortgages and everything, the full spectrum of beginners to people that invest in multifamily and have been doing it for years and years and have a huge portfolio. So it's all kinds of different walks of real estate, but again, still just things that the listeners can relate to and aspire to, and really, listen to how that person has done it. Where if we were talking to somebody, I mean, like Sandy said, we got people all the time, huge portfolios in the States, multifamily investors that want to come on and share their stories. And I'm sure they're very good and I'm sure they're inspiring as well. But the action steps, right? Like how did you do it? The nuts and bolts aren't going to be relevant to the people that we've sort of pledged to support, right? And help. So yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yeah, exactly. What I was just thinking more about the nuts and bolts piece there when you said that. What would be one thing you go back and change how you did that? Like maybe the first project or anything you changed in your way that you went about your journey into real estate investing early on? Would you go about finding a different deal maybe for your first one, or would you anything there that you would have done differently? Not necessarily that you wished was changed, but you would do differently if you did it another time.
I just wish I bought more. I wish I had figured out a way to just get my hands on more. But, at that time, it was just, I was working with what I had and the knowledge that I had and just trying to make the most of it. And I think at the end of the day, I did pretty well. But when we think about these prices, $215,000 for a place in Hamilton, if I had, if I could go back, I would just scoop up a whole bunch of real estate, right?
I know. The amount of times we're like fumbling over a decision over like, do I pay $320 or $330? $330 seems rich. I mean, I don't know. I guess that's any market that's gone up a lot, but like, it really has gone up a lot, like more than I've ever heard of anywhere. Like it's just been wild.
Yeah, but I feel like 10 years from now, we're going to say the same thing about today's prices. Like it's just likely going to continue to increase over the long term. So like the opportunities here now, even though it seems like prices are high, but who knows what we're going to be at in 10, 20 years.
Well, hopefully it'll be at a little bit more of a sustainable pace than what it has been over the last little while. That would be nice, but I mean, there's nowhere for it to go but up.
Mm-hmm.
Not in Southern Ontario, right? It's just, the two supply demand can't challenge to build new products, new houses, and more immigration.
Yeah.
So hard to see it going anywhere. Hard to imagine it going at this pace the whole time too, but you never know. Maybe it will.
Yeah. So what's next for you? What big plans do you have coming up?
On the investment side, I have a goal to purchase a 10 plus unit building. I haven't owned anything that size yet, so that's one of my biggest goals this year, and building up my cash flow to a certain level where we can start to replace our income and just reach financial freedom. That's a big thing for us, and part of that is turning over these units that we have. Some of these buildings we're working on them, making them nice and filling them with good tenants, and doing a little bit of options trading as well, getting into that so I can add an extra income source. Aside from that, I really want to just get back to the shape that I was in or better, because it's been a bit challenging with a baby, but I'm working on that as well.
Cool. Where's the 10 plus flex that you're looking for? Is that any specific area or is it anywhere? What are you thinking for that?
I'm aiming for the Niagara region, but like all my stuff is in either the Niagara region or Hamilton, so I'm sticking to those areas.
Cool. Booming markets for sure. Niagara's really growing.
Yeah, definitely.
Not 250, but I guess I would say somewhat on the cheaper end still. If you were to look across all of Southern Ontario, it's still relatively affordable.
Yeah, it's starting to catch up sort of in some ways to Hamilton. Like it's pretty
Mhm.
surprising. You're seeing these 4 or 5 unit buildings that are selling for 1.2, 1.3, which is pretty crazy when I think I bought my 5-plex just 2 years ago for 445.
Well, it's St. Catharines for sure, right? St. Catharines has really
Yeah.
gone. It's not far off from Hamilton at all,
Yeah,
from
definitely.
what I see. And then Welland and Niagara Falls a little bit cheaper, but still booming. And I think they're great markets. I mean, anywhere in Southern Ontario is a great market. It's hard to argue with anywhere.
Yeah, I agree.
That's in Southern Ontario. Costa Rica, you could argue with me about that. Maybe that might be a better place. I don't know.
I would argue that it's better than any of those places you just mentioned. Yeah, but that's just me. I'm a little biased. I tell you what, like, you'd be hard pressed to get me to come back to look at something in person. That's for sure.
In person.
In
That's
person.
what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What's we talked about your podcast. Where do people go visit that? Where do people get more info on that?
Welloffpodcast.ca. It's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all the other major platforms. So that's one way to check it out, or a couple ways.
Well, you got like 3-4 years now of content, right? So you got lots of stuff to share there.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice. Well, what else? We got to kind of wrap up a couple questions here. Do we want to extract any more knowledge from George before we?
Well, I mean, we always like to get a piece of info or advice that's always stuck with you and helped you along the way. Do you have anything like that?
This is not exactly real estate related, but I don't know why I always remember this. When I was in high school, we were doing like a track and field day, and the best athlete in my class was aiming to do a certain number of laps. And at first I was telling him I'm going to keep up with him and whatever, I'm going to do the same thing. And he told me, don't try to keep up with anyone. Just run at your own pace. Just live, like, to me, that was something that I took moving forward, because I feel like it's very easy to compare ourselves to others and to look at Sandy's portfolio or Rob's portfolio and feel bad about where you're at, but just run at your own pace, go at your own pace, and things will work out once you set your own goals and figure out what's best for you in your life.
Yeah, very good. I like it. And those tend to be like the flashy headlines that we have sometimes, how somebody acquired, 100 units in 1 year, like that kind of thing. And that's really, and they're great stories, but it might not be your story,
Mm-hmm.
So I like that. I think that there's a certain level of work-life balance too involved in that. Or maybe there's not. Maybe like some people just run into the opportunities, that can happen. But I just think you're absolutely right. People, like, for example, there is quite a few people that run into me and say, wow, Sandy's like, look at Sandy's office. He's got this new brokerage and all that kind of stuff. Like, why aren't you doing that? And I'm just like, hey man, it wasn't for me.
Look where you are. Look where I am. Look at the part of the world you're in and what you're doing. You got some different pretty cool things going on.
Well, even like before this, let's say, but it's just like, that wasn't for me. That wasn't what I was meant to do. Right. I got my small team and that works for me. Right. So I'm not like looking with envy at these other big companies that are doing things that we're not doing. I think that because if you can be happy that you've chosen what you've chosen for yourself and you're there because that's what you want to be doing, that's one thing. Now, if you are aspiring to do more, but staying in one place, that's completely another thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's really relevant more than ever, probably through this whole pandemic too, right? With people just like really getting in more online and seeing what everyone's doing, and it's just not necessarily reality what you see people doing on social media and everything. So there's a really good book I read recently around this, The Gap and the Gain. I'm not sure if either of you have read that before, but it's a great book. It's newer. It's only been out for a few months. Awesome book. It talks a lot about that, staying in the gain, which is a lot of people look at the gap. That person's up, not even necessarily that person, but in your idealistic person version of you or someone else, you look and go, I'm so far away from that. I'm so far away. And that's like such a toxic mindset to be in day to day versus but I was there yesterday and I'm gone here, and I should feel grateful and excited about what I've done and accomplished, and it's a lot more energizing to think that way. That's a very, very brief overview of the book, but it was a really good book. I loved it. It's exactly in line with what you just said. So actually, there's literally a story in the book at speed skating, but it's exactly your story, just in speed skating world, and it was pretty funny. So I love that. I love that advice. Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
No problem.
Okay. Well, how can people reach out to you?
Yeah, if they want to connect with me on Instagram, it's welloffx. You can DM me there. You can also check out the podcast again, welloffpodcast.ca. And we are always releasing new episodes and always talking to new investors. Again, Canadian content for the most part. So that's the best way.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks so much for joining us again. Really appreciate this, taking the time to share all this with us.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Sandy, how can people reach out to you?
289-389-6846. I have a new email now, so I got to remember to say it properly because the old one still works. So if you listen to other episodes, it'll still get me, but it's just a little bit of a process to do that. So Sandy at freedomreps.com is the best way. So freedomreps.com.
Freedomreps.com. Got it. So that's the new brand. We'll be looking out for it.
It's the new one, yeah.
And people can reach me at rob@mrbreakthrough.ca. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we will see you next time.